I'm a bit OCD with making beats. I don't like to move to the next stage until one thing is sort of. So in this tutorial, we're just going to be building some drums from scratch. The sites I like to get my drums from are Splice and Loop Cloud. I really like Loop Cloud. I tend to find that Loop Cloud has a lot more better drum samples. It seems like the quality level is a lot higher compared to Splice. They've also got a lot of drum and bass on there from sort of some established artists, whereas Splice, you can get some decent packs from Splice and you can find decent drums on there. I just find that Loop Cloud is more honed in to sort of drum and bass, and the quality is definitely better. But with Splice you can find the weird stuff. They've got like a bigger library of different sounds and Foley, especially Foley and stuff like that you want to add. So yeah, I like to do both. So yeah, I normally start with like a break. I'll just find a break that I like, and then I'll rebuild that break. So I've found this break here, and I'm just trying to find a kick that works. I think this one's gonna work. Just get used to fading off the ends as well, just trimming off the ends, keep everything tidy. When I'm mixing down people's tracks, I'm finding that they're not doing this because there's a lot of clipping at the end of the sample, and if you have loads of bits of clipping going on throughout the track, it's going to really mess with your other harmonics going on in throughout the track. So obviously it's a kick, we want that low end, so we don't want to cut too much from the kick. Just looking for any horrible harmonics that are really going to stand out. If you get some nasty frequencies, it can affect other elements in your track because they're all fighting for this space. And if you've got nasty frequencies that are coming through, it's going to affect your sub and your synths and all your other basses. So the more you cut, the better. You don't want to cut to the point where you're losing the sort of the sound of the kick. But if there's bad elements that you can cut and the kick still sounds good, then definitely cut. I try not to boost, but I do get carried away with boosting on kicks, definitely. Transient Shaper is great on this. I'll normally fine tune this at the end, the attack and the sustain. But just it's good practice to get it punchy from the outset before you start whacking on like loads of plugins and parallel compression. You want to make sure you're working with a good sample. You don't want to waste your time trying to sort of polish a turd if there's a lot of shit samples out there and you don't want to get to the end of your track and have to replace it. So yeah, try and make sure that you're not wasting time on bad samples. So with a kick, I will normally run them for a drum group, and then just make sure you're labeling everything, just so you can keep track of where you are. I'm going to use this is going to be the parallel compression bus, and parallel compression basically just gives it like another extra sort of layer. You want the parallel compression really to be sort of a roughish sort of sound. It's not a clean sound that you're trying to add to the kick. You're trying to fill all the gaps and trying to. So you really want your parallel compression to be. Technically, you should have it super crushed. Like, that's the rule of thumb. It should be smashed a bit. So I don't particularly like to do that. I know it's quite common in dubstep and drum and bass, really smash it. But I like to have it crunchy, but just not too distorted. And then I just dial it in until where I think it's right. And that's another thing in drum and bass is there's no real rules. I mean, what sounds good to you, go with it. What might sound good to you might sound bad to someone else, but as long as you're happy, and it's coming through in the mix. And so on the parallel compression EQ, I'm just ducking out some of the lows, just to make sure, because we're going to be running a lot of stuff through this channel, so I want to make sure that No bad frequencies are going to be coming through here. Is a rule of thumb in parallel compression, you tend to sort of boost the lows. You're trying to emphasize the low end and the high end typically, just so you can get that fat crunchy sound. And normally I would say duck a little bit of the middle, any sort of boxy area somewhere between sort of 500 and 2k. Again, mess with this when you get to the end of the mix, like have your basic setup, but then just play with it once you get to the end of the mix so it fits with everything else. So the break is fading out every time the kick comes in. It also gives the track a little bit of movement, which is nice. Just play with the attack and release until you sort of find settings that you feel are right. Obviously attack is how quickly the compressor's coming in, and then release is how quickly it's letting go. You want the release to hit the zero, you want it to come back before the next kick hits, otherwise you're going to get all sorts of problems. So try and set the release so that it's not still active when the next kick hits. So that sounds quite nice to me. It was a low end kick, but there was a nice little click at the end, so I've just cut out all the low end. Just going to fade that off so we've got no clipping. And together they sound really nice. Just be careful with your gain staging. It immediately sounds better because it makes it louder, as you can see there. It gets louder even when you just turn it on 0 dB, and it sounds better. But this is the point to gain staging. It shouldn't sound louder when you turn it on, otherwise you're going to think it sounds better. So you need to bring the output down so that it's the same volume on or off. And there you can see it didn't sound much better, you know, so don't be fooled by louder is better. Just going to try moving it around a little bit. It sounds like it's clashing a little bit. You don't have to keep everything on grid. You can move stuff off grid so all the transients aren't hitting at the same time, which can sometimes make things sound a bit wider and a bit bigger. As long as the gap's not too big, because then people will be able to hear the difference. Just reverse that there, just reverse that hit, and I'm just going to make a little pre-snare. Just leading up, just gives the snare a bit of, it just emphasises the snare and it also gives the track a little bit of movement. Just take out all the low end. And obviously we know that snare hit was in G, so the pre-snare is going to be in G as well. So everything's going to sort of be blending together. Just got a little envelope here in Logic, just to lay off some of the attack. It was it was really hitting, like both sounds were hitting quite hard. So bring the attack down on the transient, and it sounds much better. You want to try and blend them in so that it sounds like one hit rather than, you know, separate sounds. One thing I like to add in the background is a little bit of vinyl noise. It just helps give the track a little bit of, it's almost like a little bit of saturation. Just makes it sound like it's sitting on a tape or something, you know, like it's a real recording. But you have to be really subtle with it, because there's a lot of frequencies going on that you don't want to affect stuff in your track. So just really subtly, I find the sweet spots with the EQ on the top end and low end, and then just going to put it for a little bit of room, make it sound a bit real, and then I'll bring the volume right down to the point where you can barely hear it. Just gives it that sort of tape effect, you know. Acts as like a little bit of glue. So you want your EQ to be before your compression. So make sure the compressor's after. So you want to be compressing the sound. The sound that you actually, the final sound that you went with. Now you see the difference there. So I'm just going to mess with this hat, see if we can pull out maybe a different little pattern or something. Just going to copy over, Command Alt, just copy over the sidechain compression onto the hat channel. Rather than set it up, you can just literally copy it straight over. And there, it's giving it some movement now, look. It's fading in and out when the kick and snare come in. Just so it don't sound so repetitive, you know, and just the same hat. You know, it gives it a bit of movement and character. Sometimes I like to use Pan Man. It's pretty cool if you want to sort of fade things left to right. You can do this with automation, but Pan Man has its own sort of algorithms, and it sounds different to just doing it manually. I don't know what's going on in the back end, but they've obviously added their little effects in there. Sometimes this drops the volume, so you might have to put the input up a little bit on Pan Man. Another thing I like to use from Sound Toys is the vibrato, the tremolator. You get some pretty cool effects with this.
Just data.